All right, welcome back. It's great to have you here, and it's also great to have Tomasz here. Now, I've worked about 5 times to get that pronunciation right. I may not have even got it right. So, Tom, why don't you give an introduction of who you are and where you're from?
Sure, yeah. My name's Tomasz Abbott-Wieczorek, half Polish, half English, 100% Google Ads. So I've been in Google Ads almost a decade now. I've been all sides of the table, freelancer, agency side, in-house, worked mostly D2C food and drink brands. So yeah, a lot of the stuff you have in your cupboards, I hopefully had a hand in helping them grow along the way. And the last year or two, I've been a bit more active on LinkedIn. I'm currently a freelancer, consultant and coach. I've been coaching a bit more the last year or two. And yeah, just excited to get into everything Google Ads with you. Appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan.
It's great having you on here as well. Now, let's start with, I just picked up a little post that you posted about a little bit, and this is where I'd like to start the conversation on. And you made a statement, you just said that there's the 3 big mistakes that PPCs or PPCers make that kill their growth. So what would you say would be some of the biggest mistakes that people make inside of their Google Ads accounts?
Yeah, so the first one is really overcomplicating things. That's what I see a lot of Google Ads specialists doing. I always think of this frame of like, the results you're looking for are in the most boring work that you're avoiding. And we love shiny objects, right? Most of us do. I think I can talk for everyone there. And I find myself doing that quite a lot. So that's the frame I always think about, is just what is the boring work that I'm avoiding. I've seen you talk a lot about on LinkedIn. I think we shared some comments the other day together around advanced strategies and how, people are flocking to them without addressing the fundamentals first.
Yeah, I always, because people always ask me, and I'm sure you get this all the time, so they go, like, how many campaigns should I have, and how many things, and how many ad groups? And I more frame it like, and this, I let them know that this has never happened, but for me, the perfect Google Ads account would be 1 campaign or 1 ad group. If you have used that as your framework, as your starting point, you're then having to justify why you're adding in extra ad groups and, different keyword theme. Perfect justification for having a different ad group for user journey. We want to have a different shopping campaign because we want to be hitting the search and the shopping network. I always try and encourage people. The goal is to have 1 campaign or 1 ad group. Let them know that it'll never happen, but it just reframes their mind of, I'm only creating every campaign and every ad group needs to have a specific purpose for why it exists, basically. And that's, so I think that's the great way of just overcomplicating it. You talk about overcomplicating. I mean, are there any sort of clear examples you see that, through different coaching clients or do account to review, just common things that are overcomplicated?
Yeah, I think it's just about being realistic, what time you have, right?
Yeah.
Just thinking, hey, if I see this advanced strategy that somebody's using, I might just be seeing it out of context, right? It might have just worked for them. It might have just worked on a specific account in a specific country with a specific amount of spend. So I always try and add that caveat when people come to me saying, hey, I want to try out this super advanced strategy. Is I say, hey, what's your client roster look like? Do you have 5 clients? Do you have 20 clients? Do you have 100 clients, right? How much time do you have? Just being realistic. Manual bidding is a great one that I always think about, that I get asked about a lot. I don't do a bunch of it. I think it can be useful in some scenarios, but again, only if you have the time to manage it, right? If you don't have the time to manage it, then don't even bother doing it at all.
Yeah, I mean, there are some businesses which are kind of forced into it just because of the way that their business is structured. I know we've got a client and we've just said, look, you will just never be a brand that's going to be able to do smart bidding because they've got a lead. It's a really, really specific lead generation niche, which is like they could have a client that's $1,000 job to a $500,000 job. It's just, and it's very, very super niche. So we just don't change it. Just, you got to keep pushing the dials. Okay. So, agree with what you're saying there. So don't overcomplicate. What's another area or a big mistake that you see people make that ruins growth inside of their Google Ads accounts? Hello there, and I hope you're enjoying my latest interview. I just wanted to quickly let you know that all of these interviews are sponsored by my paid Google Ads community, which is called the Google Ads Mastery Community. I set this community up for one clear purpose, and that is so that I could provide people with direct Google Ads support. And we do this in 3 main ways. Firstly, we run weekly live calls, and these are live calls that are run in all different time zones so that we can get the support to you. And it's where you can actually ask myself and also highly skilled members of my Define Digital Academy team direct questions about your Google Ads campaigns. We then also run monthly masterclasses, and these are in-depth teachings for what you need for success with Google Ads. And they don't only cover things inside of the Google Ads dashboard, we also cover specific training around things like offline conversions and how to increase the performance of your landing pages. All the important things you need for true success with Google Ads. And above all else, we've got our Google Ads community feed. And this is where you can join well over 300 other like-minded professionals like you. And we've got Google Ads specialists, agency owners, and also direct business owners who are there supporting and helping each other with how to see the best success with Google Ads throughout the year. And the best thing about this community is that it's all at a really low price because you can get full access for less than the price of a cup of coffee every day. And that's why I set up this community, is so that you can get tailored Google Ads support for a very low price. Right now, we're going to get right back into the interview, but if you'd like to find out more information about how you could join and plus also get a lifetime discount to join my Google Ads Mastery community, just follow the link in the description below.
Yeah, so going off your example there, it's a great example because it's bringing it back to the purpose, right?
Yeah.
What does the business want to achieve? What does your client want to achieve? It could be so many different things. And I think that's often like misunderstood with Google Ads, where people just think, okay, number one thing, like just sales or, whatever they might think, just one result, when actually in reality, like different accounts, you can optimize them in so many different ways. And that's what I think is wonderful about Google Ads and about our industry. We have so many tools at our disposal, even if there is a lot of negativity, a lot of things said about, automation and all these big scary things. We have so many cool tools and opportunities. We just need to sometimes bring it back to basics, bring it back to the questions. And one question that I always like to have in my head to frame things is, what does your client want? And this is what I find asking my coaching clients and businesses I'm working with. I just ask them a ton. Like, it's probably half the calls I'm on. That's the question I keep on asking is, what do clients want? For example, brand bidding is a great example. Yeah. It's not a on or an off. Like, I see it talked about a lot online, in my opinion. Yeah. It's not just like brand bidding is bad or good. It's more on a scale, right? It's more of a, how valuable is it to that business, right? Yeah. And you need to talk to the client for that. So one of the biggest mistakes I see is people shutting out their client or shutting out the business, shutting out the decision makers, because they think, hey, like, they don't know what they're talking about with Google Ads. I'm the Google Ads expert, right? Or Google's the expert in this scenario, right? But you're never going to know the business as well as the business owner does, right? So I'd always say, just talk to your client more. And like most mistakes I see in an account, most sort of bad results that I see could just be fixed with actually just talking to the client and understanding. Normally it's just that we don't understand exactly how to translate that, as you said, into the structure of the account. So like how many campaigns to have, how many ad groups to have, how many landing pages to have. We just need to figure out, what does the client want? And then, in my mind, transfer that to the account.
And that's great. And a lot of the times what I'll do whenever I'm reviewing an account or whatever the scenario would be, whether they're asking me to take over into a coaching relationship, management relationships, or just if it's just a dual review, one of the first questions I ask is, let's go to your Google Ads account. Show me the campaign list. Now, I want you to talk me through each campaign and what are you wanting to achieve here? And you can find really, really quickly, if you talk to the business owner like that, or the key decision maker, sometimes they don't know. And they go, okay, well, what are you looking at achieving here? And or sometimes you get answers, I saw this guy on YouTube say this, I saw this one on LinkedIn. It becomes kind of a mismatch. Just a mix up of all different strategies. Yeah, and that's why I go, okay, let's talk about this. Why is this campaign here? Why is this campaign here? And I found that's the easiest way to really cut through, to really get to the core of what you're saying is, what does the business owner want? Because especially for us, once we start posting on YouTube or LinkedIn, we all want to throw up the 10x ROAS, but sometimes a 10x ROAS can be the worst thing for a business. And so it's got to come back to what is actually the best part, what's the best balance point for the business.
Yeah, and what I love so much about working a lot with D2C brands, a lot of food and drink stuff, is a lot of them are actually angling for acquisition eventually. So they're not just sort of, your typical small business, which is just profit and sales. Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated as far as like they're looking to maximize new customers, but they might want to get them at a certain CPA. Yeah. So there's so many different ways that you can go, right? And that's what's so interesting, I find, and a really good way to reframe it. And a lot of the time I'll go into an account and a big mistake I see is just optimizing for simply sales or simply profit, right? When actually the business wants a certain number of new customers, for example, or they want to acquire customers at a certain CPA, or they want to maintain a certain profit margin. What I try and figure out very, very early on, before I even onboard actually, when I'm doing an audit, one of the first questions in the first like 5 or 10 questions it will be, what is your North Star metric? Like, what is the make or break? And I want to know like what box we exist inside of, right? And for any business owner as well, that's a great exercise to do, even with yourself, right? Is to say, hey, what would make or break it? If I had 10 times the leads, would I be able to cope with them? If I had 10 times less leads, would I be able to cope? What would happen to the business, right?
No, and that's a great way. And I think I'm a big believer in that for true success with Google Ads, you need two things. You need to have the business knowledge. So not just general business knowledge of how the individual business works and what are their levers. And then you need to know how Google Ads works. So for me, that's where I've always gone, is that could come from two areas. So for the Google Ads, if you're a Google Ads freelancer agency, your role is to get to learn the business. If you're a business running Google Ads in-house, your role is to get to understand Google Ads. But you need both of those levels of knowledge to make Google Ads truly work for your business. Yeah,
and also like selling the wrong stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Like I had, I got fired a couple of years ago. I think I've told this story already, actually. I got fired because I was selling the wrong thing. I thought I was doing a great job inside the account. It was great results. But actually, I was selling like a very small margin product for the client, right? But I didn't know because I didn't ask the right questions. And I for sure learned my lesson in that case.
No, and that's where it comes down to, is you've got to, one of the core understandings that I try to teach people is that's where your campaign setting comes in. Always remember with Google Ads, your budget is set at a campaign level. So if you've got like a low volume, high profit product or service, that's the perfect example where it goes into another campaign, because Google would generally chase volume over higher profit margins.
Yeah, I think like, I think you talk about a similar concept around budget flow. Like where does the budget flow in the account? And that's always the way I look at it with clients, is like, first off, 30,000 feet view, where are we spending the money, right? How efficient are we being? And again, that question just comes in so much there of like, where is the best place to put that money depending on the North Star metric?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, we've got a couple of things I want to talk about, but I just wanted to finish up on this theme. Is there any other big mistakes or big no-nos that you see that PPCs will generally make inside of accounts?
Yeah, so overcomplicating things is definitely one. Selling the wrong products is one. Selling samples, selling products with no margin, selling products that your client doesn't really want to sell. As you said, going through campaigns. Another one is locations, selling in locations that I go through every single location with a client. And I have the same reaction that you do a lot of the time, where they say, hey, actually, I'm not that bothered about that country. It does rubbish. And I'm like, okay, so why do we run ads there, right? If it does rubbish, like it's not a great country for us. Maybe there's stronger competitors that are domestic there as well. Locations is just a big one, especially if you're in the US. I work with a lot of US clients, and a lot of time I'll start off. One of the big things I'll do straight away is cutting it down to 3 key states, right? If you have a budget that's under, say, $10,000 or $20,000, or even $10,000 or $20,000, like the US is pretty big, right? It's basically targeting for us outside the US, like 50 different countries, right? With the different states. So you need the budget for that, right? And you don't want to spread yourself too thin. That's a massive mistake I see, is just targeting all 50 states, right? It's crazy.
And just for anyone listening, in terms of location settings, majority of the time when it comes to location settings, you've got 2 main options: presence and interest or presence only. I'll generally go presence only. Very rare cases I'll go presence and interest, but mainly it's presence only.
Yeah, for me it's 100% presence only.
All right. Now, just sort of walk us through your journey. So if I get this right, you started working directly in companies or inside of an agency?
Yeah, so I started an agency, small agency, had a really great team, really enjoyed it. Just didn't really enjoy the format. I love the work. I love Google Ads. Just didn't really enjoy the format. And I kind of tried to figure out a way out of the typical agency life. So did a few years in agency, worked in some really cool like dream brands of mine in-house after that. And then was able to build up enough experience to then start freelancing, contracting for different agencies, different brands. And just got to work on, I'm a product guy at heart, right? So I just really love working on cool products. I really love my food and drink. So love working on stuff like that. And the last year or two, been helping more freelancers to build up their own freelancing as well.
I will admit, there's been a couple of clients, and usually they're like the smallest client. Not the smallest, but usually they're not the largest clients in terms of like management fee or how much they get paid. But sometimes I'm just like, I'm so pumped to work on this. I remember my favorite drink on a Friday afternoon is an espresso martini. And there was a company that I came across, and they make coffee concentrate. In Australia, we call them goon bags, which is like the carcinoid. And he was this complete coffee scientist guy that worked out how to keep. He was talking to me about the right viscosity of the coffee to keep the foam or the crema on top of the martini for up to 30 minutes. So I was like just over the moon. It was still one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. What I want to talk about is one of the things, because a lot of people who do watch this are currently transitioning from working in an agency to becoming a freelancer or starting their own boutique agency. So before we get into the nitty gritty of how to position yourself for clients, can you first talk through any mind shifts or strategy shifts that you had to make from being an employee at an agency, moving across to starting to run your own boutique agency or become a freelancer?
Yeah, so the first one is how much you can talk about your experience. So this is why I really started LinkedIn, actually, which I'm really glad I did, like maybe 2 years ago or so now. And I basically was under NDA with a lot of brands that I worked with, and I couldn't really talk about the results I got. So I was in this situation where I had all these cool results, all these cool brands, but I couldn't really talk about them. So I was like, hey, where do I go from here? So that's when I started to realize, hey, like I need to build something of my own. I need to build something which people can't take away from me. And that's where I started building my personal brand. So the sooner you can do that, the better. Just start putting out content, start putting out things about you. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I think it's just getting over the worry of pressing that post button. And I'm sure you can attest to this. Every time you press it, it gets easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and before we press record, that was one of the things I was talking about is I wished, so I started Google Ads in 2010. I didn't start posting any content anywhere in regards to my learnings and journeys and strategies in Google Ads until 2022. I wish I had done that earlier. And I think, a big part of it was that you're just unsure. So have you got any sort of, I guess, probably tips? Because I know a lot of people say just post, but I mean, like, did you have a plan in place? Like, did you have a schedule in place? What was kind of the things that you started putting in place to be able to grow your profile out on LinkedIn? Yeah.
So I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is imposter syndrome. And I think stacking your wins is just really, really important, just for yourself and for your LinkedIn and for your content and for your future growth. Like, so I would really start there of just doing a bit of a life audit of like, hey, what have I done? Because if you've worked in Google Ads in any capacity, you've had some results, right?
Yes.
No matter how big or small you might feel like they are. That's something that I spend a lot of time talking to PPCs about is, hey, like, just list out those wins and then let's see how we can put those out into the world. Let's see how we can work with them.
Especially if you've been in the industry for longer than 2 years. Like you've got a lot of experience there.
Yeah, and a big one is like, I was speaking to an SEO guy about this the other day. He works at an agency and he's trying to get more freelance work. And he was saying, hey, I can't do what you do. I can't talk about clients on LinkedIn. I can't talk about results. And I said, hey, well, there's probably a way you can. It's just figuring out how you can, right? Generalizing things, talking about, what you did in an account that literally cannot be traced back to what you did whatsoever, right? Like, to each their own situation, of course. I can't speak for anyone specifically, but there's always a way you can talk about your results. It's just figuring out, how to.
Yeah. I think a thing that helped me as well is I think it also takes, because when you talk about a topic like Google Ads, there's so many different angles that you come at it from. And I'm not just talking about strategies, I'm actually talking about who you want to help. So what I went through is I saw time and time again in, because I was consulting to some larger digital agencies, I saw that there was a bit of a dark spot for small to medium businesses that only had about 5,000 to 6,000 in total spend. And it wasn't that the agency wasn't prepared to look after them. It's just the way that the agency was geared. They've got to look after their tier one clients. And I went, well, when you're a business owner, I just saw that there was a need to have focused Google Ads teaching that wasn't for PPCers, although my channel has got a lot of Google Ads people in it. But especially my early videos, if you go back and watch them, I'm more talking to business owners rather than people doing Google Ads. And that actually helped me with the fear of the imposter syndrome, because I went, well, I'm not comparing myself with other Google Ads channels. I'm talking to business owners who know nothing about Google Ads, and I know more than them, not in an arrogant way, just because I've been doing it for 15 years. 20 years, 15 years at that stage. Can't even remember how, 12 years, yeah. Sorry, my maths is out. So I look at it, I go, for someone who's just starting, you wouldn't compare yourself to Thomas or me, because someone who's just starting in the industry, they may find my content way over their head. Whereas if you're if you're like been in the industry for 2 years, you can go back and go, I don't want to be releasing content for someone who's been in the industry for 5 or 10 years. I want to target my content for people who are just starting day one, first 3 months, first 6 months. So there's so many different ways that you can target it. So I would probably say the biggest mistake I see with content creators is they are too general and they don't think about their core target market of who are you really trying to help. And then that's where I went. I go, well, I'm just going to put the help out there. If you don't want it, it's no problem. And if you disagree, well, I'm sharing strategies that I know work. So it's, it doesn't matter.
The best reframe I found with that is changing from how to, when you write post how to how I, right?
Yes,
and then it
exactly
forces
right.
you. That's the best frame. And then the other best advice I ever had around that was, because I was really struggling to figure out when I started my community and I was sort of switching from coaching one-to-one to more doing group coaching and in a community setting. I was really trying to figure out, as you said, like I can't do everything. So, okay, who am I exactly trying to target? What am I going to include? What am I not going to focus on? The best advice I had ever was, if you could give yourself a book back when you started on day one, what would be in that book?
Yeah, that's great.
That's what you need to include in your content, in basically whatever you're doing. If you frame it like that, it's so much easier.
Because chances are the pain points that you had are pain points that other people are facing. So you're giving them a journey from that. No, that's great. All right, so we've spoken about mind shift. I would like to get a little bit practical about how do you position yourself, or how did you start to position yourself in order to be able to get premium clients and bigger management fees?
Yeah, so we touched on it earlier. Playing to your strengths is a massive part of it, because I feel like as PPCs, we're pulled in so many different directions. We can be so many different things to different people, right?
Yeah.
We can be conversion tracking specialists. We can be creative specialists. We can be more product focused. We can be so many different things. So it is, again, doing that audit and saying, hey, what am I really focused on? What do I really love? And a great question to ask yourself there, where people typically get stuck, is look at all the clients you've worked on in the, say, last year or two, couple of years, whatever your experience is, and say, hey, what was my favorite client? Not necessarily the client that paid you the most money or you get the best results with, which is typically what people go with. What was our favorite client? We talked about clients that we're pumped to work on, right? Like it might be a product you love. It might be a client you love. It might be an industry you love. And then go with that. Go with your gut, I would say. Just play to your strengths is just such a massive thing.
Do you have any, so in terms of clients, do you have any strategies that you have in terms of, were you doing outward reaching to them, like direct marketing to these clients? How did you go about that?
So the strategy that worked the best for me and the post that got me the most leads ever was recording all the sales, onboarding, client calls, proposal calls that I ever had with an AI note taker. And then basically running through ChatGPT and saying, hey, like, what are the most common questions? And then using my target client's exact words for the hook, for the headline of the LinkedIn post, right? So for example, one of them was, my Google Ads is rubbish, right? My Google Ads, my Google shopping sucks. And I remember at that time, 1 or 2 years ago, nobody was really making shopping content on LinkedIn. So that post got me a ton of leads. I haven't really done much outbound, to be honest, pretty much none at all. It's been all inbound in the last 2 years. So that's why I say LinkedIn's absolutely amazing. And it's given me opportunities to be here today, speak to people that I never would have wished I could just DM and they DM me back. It's just amazing.
Okay, so you more do inbound as opposed to, and LinkedIn's been your main platform that you've got that from. Do you, after a post, are you actively messaging people, or it's all coming in from your posts?
Yeah, so DMs is a massive part. That's super underrated on LinkedIn, I would say. Definitely a little trick is you can DM people, obviously not gibberish, DM them, have a conversation. If you DM them, then typically, and you might have noticed this, your post, if you post after that, soon after that, your post will come up on their feed, more likely, right? So LinkedIn does definitely take into account the type of people you DM. So I would just be cognizant of that when you're, going around on LinkedIn and who you're DMing. You're basically telling LinkedIn, these are my ideal clients. These is who I want. These are the type of people that I want to speak to. And that's why I say be careful of the biggest trap I see PPCs fall into when they're trying to build their personal brand is just speaking to other PPCs So you want to be searching for your ideal client, whoever that may be. Maybe it's a CMO, maybe it's small businesses, maybe it's big businesses. You want to be searching for them, DMing them, talking to them, getting conversations started. It doesn't have to be a sales pitch. It could just be, hey, I really like your product.
Yeah.
I've definitely got some clients that way.
And I've always said to people if they're struggling to get clients, the power of releasing content, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube or X or whatever the platform is that when you do get to a proposal stage, or you do get to a stage of, because I know I've done this as well, whenever we've had any type of proposal come our way, I'm looking at their profiles and I'm not even going into depth. I just want to see, is this person sharing and teaching about what their industry in? And they may just read one or two posts, but that even in itself just gives them a level of confidence. They get to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your personality. And that's probably the biggest thing I found is that, that was the biggest thing I was surprised about with YouTube is I thought it was just all about helping the businesses. It's become the best lead flow that we've ever had before. And the leads are different too. You probably find this with LinkedIn as well, is the whole relationship's changed, because rather than they're like coming, oh, can you come and help me? So you don't have to, I don't do big presentations anymore. It's more just, we do a call, we see if it's a good fit and go from there. So yeah, I agree with you. I think I don't do any outbound either. It's all inbound.
Yeah. And like charging for your audits or charging for your calls is one of the biggest shifts I always recommend for freelancers.
Yeah.
And that's enabled by building your personal brand. That's enabled, as you said, where people have more confidence in you when they're seeing your profile, they're seeing you're pushing stuff out, they're seeing you're, trustworthy in the marketplace, right? Then you can start to actually charge for things which typically maybe people give away for free. You can also, and the biggest shift for me in my freelancing was going from charging in arrears to charging in advance. And that's something that's been pivotal in my success completely, like probably one of the biggest changes. And that's been completely enabled. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have the personal brand to back it up.
Now that's great. So I guess probably the biggest take-home message that you're sharing is obviously, regardless of what part of the journey you are, if you are looking at getting into freelancing or starting your own agency, it's content is the key. Starting to share some level of content on one of the platforms. It doesn't really matter which platform, but start to share and just be regular with the content. All right. So as a finish, I mean, you may be aware, I think everyone's aware, that there's a couple of changes happening in Google Ads at the moment in our whole industry over the next couple of years. I know, especially for me this year, I'm really making it an effort to really lean into some new automation tools. One, are there any trends that you're seeing that you think people should start to be preparing for? And two, is there anything in terms of AI automation that you're implementing right now into your business?
Yeah, so AI stuff, reformatting data has been a big one for me with AI. That's been super, super useful. I feel like it's pretty recent where ChatGPT and other AI tools can basically, you can give it different file types. It can then work it out into a spreadsheet or into a PDF or into an image, reformatting stuff, which, as you know, has taken up days, weeks, months of our lives as PPCs. Reformatting stuff has been a big shift for me. And also rewriting stuff, landing pages. As soon as you said big shift, that's what I thought of was landing pages. I feel like people don't really talk about, because you got all the automation, you got more AI stuff in Google Ads. I think we see all these signs that Google is definitely looking at landing pages more. It's more important than ever to make sure your ads match your landing page very closely and people get what they expect when they click through. That's even more important when CPCs are just like sky high, right?
Yeah.
And everybody moans about it, but the landing page is the answer.
Yeah. The big thing one of the messages I did a masterclass inside of my community, and which was called Google Ads in 2025. And the terminology we're putting around it is that your landing page is actually becoming targeting. So Google is still looking at your keyword targeting, but especially if Search Max comes in, we don't know how it's going to be rolled out. Definitely a broad match that made it really, really clear that the landing page is becoming similar to what the shopping title in the shopping feed, similar to the product title and the product description used to be. And the landing page, that's actually now becoming really, really important in search ads as well. So yeah, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, landing pages and AI-wise, rewriting stuff. So rewriting things in different voices, being more persuasive, matching things more closely with your ad copy, for example. But yeah, just what I thought of there was just reading Google's like actual own documentation more. And also if you have a Google rep, not just completely disregarding them, which I've seen a lot of negativity around that, but actually they work at Google and you don't, typically is the relationship, right? So they're probably privy to things that you may not be. So I would just be aware of that and maybe ask the right questions, and you might find out something interesting, right?
I always make it a point, especially if I'm going to have a client meeting with an accelerator growth team or whatever the more higher teams are. I always make a point to come in with 3 questions, which are generally not even that client. They're more just broader Google Ads questions. Like I'll go, I've seen this trend. So one of the earliest ones I got, because I found that they give you some really good information. Like I had a hunch, and this is going back a couple of years ago, that at a certain point, click-through ratio is more important than keyword quality score. And they confirmed it. So operating in our team, that once you get a quality score above 5, your click-through ratio is way more important than your quality score for your keyword. So then I was able to go, okay, to all our clients, let's stop worrying about a quality score of getting a 5 to a 6, because we're going to get much more benefit of getting a click-through ratio from a 7 to a 12. That's what I let everyone know, is don't treat Google like the enemy. There's a lot of stuff that I disagree with how they're doing, especially with their support at the moment. But you're exactly right. When it comes to a Google rep, don't waste the phone call and really push. Sometimes they can't answer the question, and sometimes they're driven, well, can you get me some more data? And I always ask, whenever they give a strategy, I'm also asking for data and case studies. And just go, okay, so you've rolled out this strategy to us. Before we implement it on this client's account, can you give me 3 or 5 test cases where this has worked? And just so I know as a proof of concept whether it works or not.
Yeah, what I find is really great is different countries, different localization teams are really helpful as well from Google. So you could say, for example, if you want to be the biggest drinks brand in the UK in gut health, for example, you could ask Google, hey, what are your case studies in Brazil or in somewhere completely different? How did you grow the biggest brand there? And typically they can help you.
Yeah, that's really, really, really good advice. Hey, Thomas, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. For anyone watching or listening, I'm going to put in the description or in the show notes where you can get in contact with him and where you can hear all about what he's doing. Before we finish, any last comments or any final goodbyes before we press stop?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I would just say play to your strengths, guys. And don't listen to all the negativity on LinkedIn around Google Ads. It's an exciting time. 2025 is going to be profitable for all of us. And thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. You have a great day.